Igor. Well, hi, my name is Rui. I'll have a slide about myself, but I'll at least say my name first. First of all, I didn't know about the snacks or the dinner, so I didn't came for it before you think about. It's new to me as well, so be sure to check out and sign for a talk. This is always fun. So let's start with this. Whom here have heard about Flutter already? Oof, I wasn't expecting this. So Flutter has been out for a while, not the stable version, but the beta version lasted for at least 1 year. So and lots of stuff changed, but amazingly, Europe was not a place that was using it. China and the States were power using it, and nobody in Europe knew about. So Google even thought that the world launch of Flutter to be in London because of that, trying to attract more European developers into it. I don't know why European developers don't use it. It kind of doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. Since it came out, I kind of got hooked into it, and I was never a mobile developer, nor I had the interest about mobile developing, probably because of Java. I hate Java. I don't know if any of you likes Java, but it's... Sorry, you were saying?
I was going to say I don't like Java.
You don't like Java?
I'm a bit confused.
Yeah. Too many letters, too many stuff. Life is just too short for Java. And it never attracted me. I knew that in lots of releases they changed the way of building stuff. It was never concise. It was never like a proper SDK to build interfaces. So people struggled a lot. Maybe that's why probably the App Store has more stuff and more appealing stuff than the Play Store. But then again, this came out and lots of stuff is being built with Flutter. I'm telling this because it's not on the slides. If you ever heard about Google Fuchsia, it's said like this. It's being built on top of Flutter. So either this is really good or Fuchsia is going to suck ass. So let's see. So let's take it for a spin. So what is this Flutter thing? Blah, blah, blah. What is Dart and where it has been all my life? This is actually true because, well, we'll figure it out. Or I'll explain, I don't know. And let's check these things and build a small project. What's going to happen? So I have a couple of slides, a small introduction about Flutter and Dart in a whole, but in the second part, I'm going to do live coding, the first biggest mistake, but I will nevertheless. And I hope you guys participate, and gals, participate with me, because the idea is pretending that I actually don't know a thing about Flutter, which I don't. It's mainly copy-pasting code from tutorials and stuff like that. I'm not a pro in this, but it will be fun. So, what's the button to change this stuff? Yeah.
Hello.
Which one, man?
There you go.
Oh, so this is Rapso. This is my handler. Except the ones that know me in person, does anyone ever heard of me? You can say no, man. I am expecting that. Hence this. Who the hell is Rapso? So, my name is actually Rui Lima. I'm a software developer for Dash. Don't know if you heard it as well. It's a startup here in Porto and in Berlin as well. And we're building, I would say Excel on steroids, because it looks like it. It's Excel, but with a bunch of cool stuff. Initially, I was going to use it as a backend for this presentation, but it would take too much code, and we don't have enough time, and it will have to have kind of advanced topics into the Dart and Flutter thingy, so maybe it's not the best part for the first talk, and especially that so many people doesn't know or never tried Flutter, so I think it's not worth to go into such details. Well, I'm mostly a JavaScript developer. I could say I'm only a JavaScript developer because it's mostly what I do. And this justifies the interest in Dart. How coming from another language does something else can be like so easy to start with, and how could like a JavaScript developer, y'all know how JavaScript is, and probably you loathe JavaScript as well because it has lots of garbage in it, but you'll see some resemblances with JavaScript in the Dart thing, but mainly it looks like something that coming from you name which language, going to Dart, I think it's plain as water. It's not really complicated, and it's a familiar language. I don't know anything about mobile developing. I don't. I mostly do front-end stuff, but never for mobile devices. Never did it in my life, and probably will never do. And I live in the beautiful Braga. If you never went there, or if you don't go there often, you should, because it's way better than Porto. Oh well, Flutter. Let's get to it right away. So, it was unveiled in 2015 at the Dart Developer Summit, somewhere in China, Shanghai, I think. Although the first public version only came out in 2017. That version was 0.0.6, and it was very different from which is today. The first stable version came last year at December 8th, if I'm not mistaken. They did the global launch, although it was in a public event in London. It was a blast, and they are investing really a lot in the community, in the stuff like documentation, and they have lots of video casts, shows about how to develop stuff, and lots of stuff about Flutter that commonly we don't use. Some of them like primitive stuff like Canvas to draw wacky stuff in mobile applications. It's pretty neat. If you ever want to know more about it, the show is called The Boring Show, or Boring Flutter Show, something like this. And it's really funny, and they really know what they're talking about, way better than me. And it's really easy to learn small stages of mobile application development on top of Flutter. So give it a go, guys. The episodes are really nice. And this is actually really funny because it was like a world phenomena, because no platform, not even React, Rails or whatever, has got so many traction or attention from the public audience in terms of technology, like .NET or something, any framework that there is. Never a framework had a growth so steep as Flutter did since December to today. Lots of stuff, maybe introductory, like in Medium posts. Medium is already blocked from Reddit, so I don't know if we can trust Medium too much in terms of content, but this is actually true, and lots of spawning content, video casts from other people. Lots of people try to build stuff. If you write Flutter and Instagram, the amount of clones you have from Instagram written in Dart on top of Flutter is insane, and at the same time really easy to replicate. So if you want to do like a small exercise at home, give it a go with the platform. Instagram or a clone of Instagram is always a good idea. So be my guest and then do a talk and invite me, because I would like to know. So Flutter, it was developed at Google. It's on top of, it's composed by 3 layers. This is kind of twisted that I'm starting to talk about Flutter and not the language itself, but there's a reason. The 3 layers is, I don't know if you ever heard, the Skia graphics engine, which is the graphics engine or library or framework or whatever that Google bought around in 2005. As it says, it's everything Firefox related, since Firefox OS to mobile devices that had the Firefox stuff, Thunderbird, Firefox itself. They all use Skia I don't know how to say it, to do the drawing. Even Sublime 3 does this, so it's a pretty well-known library. Google bought it, but open sourced the next day. I think they bought it for that purpose, because it was from a company called Skia. Who would have guessed? It was going nowhere, but at the same time it was a better port than Cairo. I don't know if you ever heard of Cairo. It's the equivalent, but for really old desktop stuff, and I don't know if anything else. Second layer, the foundation library. So if the first one was the painting engine or rendering engine, the second one is the foundation library, which is a bunch of widgets. Everything is a widget. If you want to put some text, it will be a widget. It has to be a widget. But it kind of makes sense. If you guys are familiar with React? Okay, so imagine you want to print some text. You always wrap at least in one div. You can use the fragments now, but still it will be wrapped in something. So it's kind of the same. Everything has to be wrapped, even if it's a small piece of text. It has to have a container somewhere in the viewport. So they decided to call it widgets. They have stateless, stateful. Stateful, it's pretty much like React. They even use an internal function called setState, which does almost the same. And it has the same growth issues that React had at the beginning. You don't want to do a set state in like a top level component, otherwise it will trigger lots of re-renders in the hierarchy. This is written in Dart, but the other part, even from Flutter, is written in C++ due to the Skia API. And then it's the Dart platform. Do you ever heard or try, let's say tried, heard, it's even less. Do you ever try Dart language before? Give it a go, did you install it? Nice. What do you thought of it? What do you thought of it?
It was amazing. I tried when it came live. I see it on the Google I/O event, I think. I made a video of 1 hour explaining the language on my YouTube channel. Nice. So I love the language, but I don't use it for years now.
Really?
Yeah. I'm the time of Google made a Chromium version with the Dart virtual machine in it. Yeah. You don't need to transpile to JavaScript before running on product. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting stuff. Dart supposedly, but we can go over it in a bit. But Google did try to replace JavaScript with the Dart VM. It didn't went well. The project is dead. I don't know why. But there are like metrics or performance analysis from the creators of Dart, and they say, which I kind of don't believe, but would like to see, that Dart can create JavaScript which is faster than JavaScript. Kind of doesn't make sense, but it seems that the transpiler do some magic, or I don't know, resource management.
Sorry? That happens with TypeScript. The JavaScript it generates can be faster. Because it does some like optimization.
Oh yes. But with TypeScript, you can have like better performance and worse performance at the same time if your code base is big enough. I mean, it doesn't even need to be that big. but it's a work in progress because it's a superset of JavaScript, while this one isn't. So they can do way more stuff at compile time and going back and forth than what TypeScript can. And TypeScript has in comparison with Dart, it inherited all the garbage from JavaScript. They didn't try to sort it, like undefined is still there, null is still there. Nobody knows when to use one or the other. Everybody has different opinions, ideas on how to use them.
You can tell the compiler to check for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But even that is, do you really want like to be fiddling with TS config files and changing flags in the compiler and stuff like that? Because that takes me back to the Makefiles days and C and C++, where a flag could like make it work or not work. So lots of times I didn't know what I was doing, and even with TypeScript, and I write TypeScript for a living, and sometimes I don't know what I'm doing, especially in the compiler configuration. This doesn't happen here. It's good at least on that. Sorry.
Can I ask a question? So what does Dart compile down to? Do you have multiple languages it compiles down to?
No, it has a proper VM. It was built from scratch. It's a general purpose programming language built from scratch. I'm gonna like spill the beans here, but it was developed and created and developed by the same dudes that created the V8, Lars Bach and Kevin Lund, I think. Lars Bach left Google, I think last year or something, to pursue some weird ideas on his own. But the idea was still there, and probably he left because nobody gave a rat's ass about Dart. They didn't, because this was out like, what, 2013 or something. Or less. I think it's 7 years old by now, and we still don't know it, or lots of people don't know it, so either the PR failed, or they didn't have a PR at all, so I don't know what happened. I can say my first experience with Dart was kind of shaky. I didn't like it at the beginning, but again, it was like at least 5 years ago, but it really changed, I think, with Flutter, because you have like results right off the bat, and Dart itself, well, another programming language where you're going to check the output in the command line, what does it bring? And the language itself looks like Java or C, so it was not appealing for trying something new that looked like everything that we are used to, or at least have to do every single day to keep getting them checks. But I don't know. It's something in Dart got into me. I hope I can like spread the virus here as well. Dart, and here it is. Some stuff that I already said. First appeared in 2011. Jesus, it was like 10 years ago. Do you even remember where you were at 2011? I don't. Anyways, it first appeared in 2011. First, it was paired with the Android Studio. Back then, it was still on top of Eclipse, so it was a pain in the ass. It was really slow, and the more you worked on it, the worse it get. So probably people start like dumping it as well, because nobody likes Eclipse, at least every single day, every single week. I wouldn't, I would kill myself. But current version is 2.2.0, last February. It's being updated, I would say often, but it's pretty stable, so it won't change for a while, especially if after they said that the new platform will be written partially in Dart, so probably it's a closed business for the time being. Again, it was created by Lars Bach, Casper, not Kevin, yeah, and Casper Lund. They created the V8 JavaScript engine. Everybody knows about that. Everybody uses Chrome. Everybody uses, I don't know, something Electron based. So even Slack or code, I don't know. So everybody kind of knows who these dudes are. There was a project, and still is, called Angular Dart. If you ask me, it's better than the TypeScript one, but that's my opinion. But nobody uses it anymore, so it lost the race against TypeScript. But if you want, it's still up, it's still there, and it's still pretty nice to develop on top of it. Again, it's a general purpose programming language. Looks a lot like C and Java. AOT compiling. Do you know what AOT means?
Ahead of time.
Yeah. Do you know what ahead of time means in terms of compilation?
It means that it's compiled first and then inference.
Yeah, exactly. And the second one, the JIT. Do you guys know? Just in time, exactly. But can you like figure it out, the purpose here of the JIT? Sorry?
For optimization?
Well, yeah, it's a optimization. Yeah. But one cool thing about the JIT is live reloads, because just-in-time execution, new code is transpiled to machine code or something that runs in the VM, bytecode. Since the code is already in the VM, you can like push code, and you can even generate code on the fly, and you can like develop, like you had the live reload when you're doing something with React, and you change state, and you do and change some CSS property or something, or even JavaScript, and save the file, you'll not lose state. Well, this happens as well with mobile developing. It's amazing, and that's why I think it's important to have some sort of hands-on section in this presentation, because talking is cheap, putting the hands in the dirt is always more nice than buzzwords and all this. Snapshots. Do you guys use Jest for testing? Does any of you does it? Nice.
What is this thing you call testing?
Yeah. You caught me there. Well, we can say we write tests. It's being recorded, you know. It's always nice. But in the end of the day, nobody looks at the code, or we can like buy a beer to the one that does the code review. So yeah, let's not talk about tests, because I'm not writing anyone today. Snapshots. Jest has a powerful tool for that. Snapshots basically generate something. Imagine like a hash, which is not, but like an object representation of an object from JavaScript. And then, it's really nice for regression tests, because if you change something, the snapshot will be different and will raise an error saying the snapshot changed. Maybe you should change the snapshot because your test is failing, or what you're trying to do is not correct. You changed something that you shouldn't, and you changed the signature of the object, and the test broke. It's really nice. Dart has this natively, so it eases the pain of testing, reflection, lots of that stuff that object-oriented languages lack. For example, I know from my colleagues, reflection is something that they always try to avoid because of how hard it is to test. But then again, I don't write Java, nor I want to, but it's weird that something in the language is hard to test, and they never came up with snapshots or anything like that. Isolates is the last one. Isolates is like web workers, I don't know, like I don't want to say the word slave, but you know the master-slave architecture, and you have the master process and then the children processes. Well, it's kind of the same. Isolates are different processes, although they talk with each other. They don't share resources like memory, but they talk with each other like in a message buffer like protobuf. So it's a really nice implementation and a really nice way to have replication of any process running. If you want to like have, I don't know, a couple of processes serving a web page or something. It's really easy with to accomplish that with isolates. Compared with JavaScript, although Node now has the Node cluster, and the Node cluster allows you to do the same, the way they change or they exchange messages between processes is so bad that it can break like for nothing. But it's really hard to, knowing that you're accessing an object, it's in another process, and it's the node cluster that's like handling the serialization and deserialization of the message, but still it's shaky, and one ends up always using either systemd or something like that, or even PM2 to control the processes and replication. If we had Dart, we didn't need that stuff. Well, the first sentence is kind of true. It does compile to JavaScript. That's why it was accepted by the ECMA International. Do you guys know what ECMA means, right? Well, ECMA script, and they have a bunch of names. Basically, it's the governing body or something like that controls the specification of the JavaScript language. JavaScript is an implementation of the ECMA specification. There are other implementations, like there was Qt-script, for example, used to run or power the Phantom.js platform. So Phantom was a browser in the command line, and we thought it was a browser, but basically it was the Qt engine running behind the curtain. It took a while for the ECMA International organization or association, I don't know, to accept the Dart language, but it's good that they did, because every new feature from JavaScript has to have something similar in Dart. So if you want to like change languages the same way we do JavaScript and TypeScript at the same time, it's pretty nice to be able to do the same with Dart. There are even packages that allows you to import JavaScript into the Dart code in runtime, and even testing it without transpiling and stuff like that. It's a standalone platform language, blah blah blah. What does this mean? Like I said before, it can be a programming language to build anything, and you can try it out in the command line like any other, I don't know, like Ruby or even JavaScript on Node.js.
Can you build JavaScript libraries from it?
Through some layers like Dart2.js and stuff like that, you can like have a mixed environment, although it's not recommended, because truthfully it doesn't work at the same time. So it kind of like postponed the usage of JavaScript after all the code is transpiled. But it is possible. I wouldn't though, because then that doesn't even have weird stuff like JavaScript with the JSON object, for example. Does anyone know which version of JSON JavaScript has? No, it's there. No one knows if it's JSON 1, JSON 2. Nobody knows if Douglas Crockford is still working on it, trying to make it better.
I don't think the JSON specification has really changed much over time.
Well, in terms of performance, for example, there are a couple of better ways from, for example, imagine XPath to traverse a JSON object. Sometimes you don't want to like decode everything. For example, the guys from the ones that build a tool called Fastify, it's a web server like Express, built for Node.js. They did like a JSONify or something, and it's a really fast way of parsing JSON, way faster than JSON parse. And so there are performance issues there. There are improvements that can be done, but nobody does them or nobody accepts them. There's no governing body that says what's in or out. And if you think about it, do you know any other language that has like this sort of primitives in there that can parse JSON but can't do other stuff like, I don't know, simple stuff like, now it has a templating string, I would say engine, but it's kind of new that it didn't even have that. One has to concatenate all the pieces of a string. It was really not a broken but an incomplete language, or at least in terms of tool set that was given to the developer. Node.js came out like 20 years after JavaScript, or 15, so there wasn't even a proper port for a command line interface, for example. So it's weird how JavaScript is right now in the world, being a language that is so shaky and so, I don't know, weird in some ways. And one thing JavaScript doesn't have and suffers a lot from it is an SDK or a standard library or stuff like that. Like, there's no standard way of reading from a file or reading from the command line. There's like a bunch of modules that can do that for you, but all implementations depend on lots of shit. And even yesterday when they figured it out, the picture of the black hole, the first thing that came out in the internet was node modules written in the middle, because that's it. JavaScript is so bloated that right now a simple Create React app downloads like 300 megabytes of stuff that you don't even know, because in your package JSON it just says React scripts and you don't even know you're downloading the internet. So it's kind of broken, and luckily here it's a little bit better. So trying to like summarize or something, why Flutter is good, why Dart is good. So I'm only gonna like drop these topics here. It's the language and the SDK, the software development kit, if you don't know the acronym, to multiple platforms. Why this is good? You can write like Dart code on top of Flutter, and at the same time you can build for iOS and Android, and you can publish like with a click both to the App Store and the Play Store. So in this way you don't have to go through the problems of Android and then trying to port the same thing back to Objective-C or Swift. Although people say Swift is really nice, it's not really appealing to me, especially because the bunch of layers that Apple does on top of ones that want to develop for their platform. Like, you have to pay rent to be a developer. Screw that. One does developing to get money, not to waste money. Anyways, it has two, I want to say not widgets, like themes or something. Basically, it's the foundation for building something. If you don't want to have like a blank screen and widgets that look like crap without styles or anything, out of the box you have the material design specification implemented, and you have the Cupertino, which is the equivalent but for iOS. It has stateful auto reload, like I said before. This is really amazing, because if you have an application like a shopping cart and you're like testing the checkout, does any of you ever had to build like a store, an online store, and did like the checkout process? It's a pain in the ass, because every time you reload, you lose what's in the basket, or you have to save it somewhere else, like in a database or something. With this, you don't even need to be connected to anything. You can like mock data, and if that data eventually changes in the state, like dragging a product or an item to the cart, you change the code, you save the code, it will live reload, but the state will be there. The item will be in the cart, and you can change lots of stuff around. Not everything, but lots of stuff, and it will still have the same state. It's pretty nice. It doesn't go back and forth. You don't have lots of problems of replicating or even avoiding using the UI and trying to write tests, which can be hard because you're going to integrate with external services. Whomever of you ever mocked a WebSocket connection? This was one of the hardest things I did with my life. Like, writing tests and mocking a WebSocket server was horrible, horrible. I didn't even know the specification of all that stuff, but testing something like a WebSocket, I don't know. It was really worse than developing the actual functionality. Anyways, it has its own IDE. This is really important. As you can see, TypeScript may be getting lots of traction because Microsoft was smart enough to develop code more or less at the same time. They launched TypeScript, nobody was giving a damn. At the same time, I don't know if you remember, AdScript was a thing. Actually, Angular was using AdScript. It was called AdScript because it was the first language or subset of JavaScript that used the decorators, hence the ad. And around 2014, I think, they merged AdScript and TypeScript. So it got only one language, but still there was no support, there was nothing. So I think Microsoft decided to develop its own IDE in order to kind of sell to the community their language. And it worked. These dudes tried the same, although they failed miserably. First time, as I said, it was Eclipse, everybody hated it. Now they changed to IntelliJ. It's the same stuff. It's easier, it's faster, but at the same time, man. But the good thing is it's really easy to use any IDE or a proper IDE. I will show you running it on Android Studio and IntelliJ and even VS Code, and you can like execute, debug, breakpoint, advance, control every single thing with a simple IDE like code. Simple, easy to get. It's not like paid like in IntelliJ or something. And that's it. This was the boring part about Dart. Oh, in a while, this was a latest edition. I don't know if you checked your emails, for sure you got it. This was from Stack Overflow, yearly metrics, analysis, I don't know. It was from last year's that. Thank you. As you can see, Dart is in the bottom, but still getting some traction. TypeScript is way ahead, but if you check the others, lots of stuff that lots of people use, like Kotlin or Swift, doesn't have a big community around it. The year before, Dart was 0, wasn't even here. Most loved, dread, and wanted languages. Here you can see the bump. As I said at the beginning, it was the fastest bump. It came from 0 or next to 0 to 66.3%. This is pretty good. And it's weird how a language almost 10 years old, it was like Ruby, I guess. Ruby was like from 96 or 95 and nobody gave a damn until like Rails came out in 2001 or 2002 or something. These guys should know better because they used to love this, right? And here, the most loved frameworks, as you can see, Flutter is number 3. I don't know how .NET is number 1, but then again, I'm not a Microsoft developer, or I don't even know how to program in Windows, but I know it's possible though, but I don't know how people like it, but well, it's okay. But it's funny to see the comparison here, especially with Xamarin. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but basically it's, I could use this, well, I think we're not having the demo. Xamarin is the Microsoft version of, well, let's say, to fight React Native, to fight Flutter and all that. I don't know if it's good enough. I know it was bought. Microsoft didn't develop it, it bought it, and now they're trying to build stuff on top of it. It comes with the Visual Studio pack and stuff like that, so probably that's why lots of people are using it, but it's not really good, at least in my opinion. But then again, I'm an open source guy. But it's impressive to see Flutter in number 3. Now, getting dirty. Well, let's go through the code a bit. Hugo said I only have like 15 minutes, but I think it's enough to, I don't know, at least showcase something. Since you don't know Flutter, you'll have like at least the experience of how to get it done or get it going. So let's go through it. First, if you go to flutter.io, you could like download. I'm not going to do it, but it's really easy to get started. They'll say download this stuff, blah blah blah. I'm not downloading because I already have. Lol. So if I have this over here, I think I should like have everything there. Oh, I'm going to do this. So let's put it this here. I can barely see. Oh, here I am. So I have there a project, but I'm going to create one. So let's start with Android Studio. It's the IDE that ships with Flutter. It's optional though, but I would say it's mature enough to be a tool for day-to-day work. If you haven't tried, you should. If you use the IntelliJ products, I don't remember the name of the company. It will be the same because it's built on top of the same thing, and I think it crashed. Nope. It did crash. Jesus. Those things about live coding, you know? Yeah. Oh well. It's Java. It takes too much time. I should be doing this. I can do it in the command line. So.
Also VS Code.
Yeah. The thing is, VS Code can be a nice tool to develop, but it isn't for starting because you don't have the AVD tool and stuff like that, and Android Studio have it natively. AVD is basically Android virtual devices, where you can like create and control which API you're using, the Android version, which phone are you using, or you want to test in it. So if you have like tools to configure that, even if it's the Android SDK tools that come in a bundle, if you don't have, it's better to go through Android Studio or something, at least in my opinion. So let's try to drag it here. So as you can see, start a new Flutter project. You can do the same with Flutter create in the command line, but here it's easier to configure. So we want an application. That's right. They have the distinguish between plugins and packages. So because the boilerplate is different, and reducing the boilerplate for developers, it's like a breeze of fresh air, at least in my opinion. So we need to find our Flutter. Here it is. The SDK, everything, brick. What is this? Let's call it Flutter app. Why not? And it's a new application. So this is really easy. Brokecompany.com. Yeah. Why not? So sample application. This can be nice. What do we want? So maybe a drop-down button. It's the simple one should do. And this is a really cool stuff. If you come from back-end developing, and I think lots of people that ended up writing Android's code or developing on top of Android to build applications came from back-end developing due to being built with Java. Although I don't know if you heard of Kotlin. Kotlin is getting lots of attention. I think it already went through Scala as a subset of Java. People say it's really easy to understand, and you have to write way less verbosity that Java mandates. And the funny thing is, if you want to develop not with Dart but with Kotlin, you can, or even Swift, but it's not the purpose today, so let's skip it. Again, Java is power. Time for a sip. I need to click in something? Nah, it was creating stuff. It's that thing about Java, man. No, it's not. It's if they built all this stuff, man, I should have like the light theme. Oh well. So let's look at the code and try to find similarities. It's easy to look at here and say it's a mix of Java and JavaScript. Probably this one should be called JavaScript, but it really looks like Java. It has a strong static typing system. Lots of people say it's what's missing in JavaScript, and TypeScript came to save the day. In a way, I understand that saying. It's always better to have like a compile time error when you don't provide the proper argument to a function, like you're supplying a number when it was a string.
Couldn't find undefined and undefined.
Yeah, those weird tricks that one could do. It's really nice to have static typing and having a compiler that detects error before runtime, because who haven't debugged something, or at least with console logs, trying to check what was on that variable and why it broke or it didn't work. Well, here it's really different. And at the same time, it's on top of classes. Although you can like easily write a function like in JavaScript, you don't really want, because when you export stuff, normally you want to export a class to be instantiated somewhere. While functions, it's a fire and forget. Normally you try to stay as pure with functions as possible, so you can't write too much code only with functions, but you could. There was no problem in it. So let's give it a go. The thing I was saying, if you don't have Android Studio, creating this can be a pain. Here you can like come here and check which devices you have, which SDK you have, with APIs. It opened a new window, so I'm not going through the hassle of dragging this. So let's give it a go. Selecting a device, why not iOS? I didn't select, where is the device? Again, now I have two devices. Nice. Or is it the same? No, this is the recording thing. Damn. Oh well, we need a device. Here it is. Probably it's written in Java as well. We could launch the Android as well, and using both, although they don't recommend, it's possible, so why not? A Pixel to XL. Here it is. Here is one. Here is the second. This one had like some previous stuff, so let's try to erase it. Okay, so let's run the code on iOS, and then we run on this. So before that, let's see. What do you guys think at the first look to the language itself? What do you guys think? Is it attractive? Is not attractive? Do you want to be writing classes everywhere?
No, not really.
Not really, yeah. I thought the same. Although I kind of live with it, because React and stuff like that, they... Sorry?
They tried using hooks.
Sure. But testing is still really hard with hooks. There's no like proper...
You can take snapshots the same way you want.
Oh yeah, but testing is really a pain in the ass right now for hooks. I mean, PayPal has a solution. Not even Enzyme is like the default now. And even for them, it's bad, because every version of React, they kind of change with which library they recommend to be using for writing tests.
It used to be Jest, right?
Yeah, but the library to mock render and stuff like that. Yeah, Enzyme used to be the default. Meanwhile, they created the React test library or something. But even the core team doesn't say it's the best for the job. It kind of works, but for example, you can't go or can't like find properties if you want to like mock pressing a button or something like that. The library from the React team doesn't do that. Is not able to do that. It's more for, I don't know, testing really small and simple components. But again, hooks, I think it's the can see dots library, which they recommend right now. And again, all this party about hooks, and then you can write tests. We tried this at work and we couldn't write tests, so we had to rewrite everything. Not everything, but only the hooks part, because we couldn't test it in any way. I think.
We're going on attention. But what will you be testing completely?
How so? With hooks?
Yeah.
Everything. You have to test the state and all that. But you couldn't like mock the.
Most functions would be stateless anyway, so it's just input-output tests.
How come? If you use hooks?
Can we have that discussion over dinner?
Anyways, I think the idea with Dart is they don't want to go away from the Android community. They don't want to go away from the Swift community. They didn't want to have like a different language like React again, and the ReasonML language. I don't know if you ever tried it, or if you ever tried the OCaml, for example, but they're not easy languages, and it's a complete shift in terms of what one is used to do at work or one is familiar with.
Can I ask if you explored that option? PureScript, have you ever tried any functional?
Yeah.
What did you?
Actually, I prefer. I like a lot of Elm. I don't like their decisions. They are really like they're a company-backed solution, even if it's open source and anything. It's something that they are paid to build that. It's something like Laravel. It's only a guy that decides everything. For example, the latest major release broke lots of stuff, and lots of people asked to add that stuff back to the language or the framework itself, and they refused because they said, no, we don't use it, and you shouldn't as well. But people were maintaining code in production, and it was not a finished product. They wanted like to upgrade the library. They didn't want to work on top of obsolete software, but well, they are like really hard to deal with in those terms, and mostly for the.
Comparing to this, how do you compare with Dart?
In terms of language, it's pretty different. In terms, so if you like that kind of language like Ruby, that you don't write much, and lots of symbols like arrows and stuff like that does lots of magic. If you're into that, why not? If you want verbosity, but as you can see, there's no new keyword or all that crap that one thinks when has a class has to do something. Here it doesn't happen. And lots of shorthand operators like this. This basically says everything that you put here will be supplied to the parent constructor. So it's like a spread or something, but a more verbose way of spreading. And if you see 3 dots, now you know it's taking the rest of the argument and putting in an object, but using like key, any key can be a key, and all of those keys can be supplied to the parent constructor. For me at least, it's easier to understand when there are letters saying what something is than symbols like 3 dots. Also, this shorthand for one-liners, even for the constructor, this is pretty nice. So you don't have to do that thing of creating the constructor, this dot something is the first argument, and so on and so forth. This is a really nice way of overcoming that. In terms of functional programming. Lots of concepts are, I would say, imported, but or implemented in Dart, especially everything, or if you end up doing anything big enough to an app that has lots of state and or lots of different renders in different occasions with animations and stuff like that. I kind of lost in the thought here.
Comparing the language with
Oh yeah, everything has to be using cold and hot streams, for example. Lots of reactive programming in here as well. ReactiveX or RX is already ported to Dart, and lots of people use it like in JavaScript right now. Lots of people, especially the ones that like functional programming, use RX. It's like the first dependency they install in a project. Here is the same. They have native implementations for syncs and stream controllers. All the builders here, these functions, like when you say an app bar is something, they already natively can work if you provide a stream controller or a stream builder. If it's a stream, it's going to like re-render when the stream changes. It automatically subscribes to any change, so you don't have to do that boilerplate with observables. If you guys went through RX or anything with observables, for sure you complain about the boilerplate. These guys took care of everything. That's pretty nice. Especially all these widget factories and stuff like that. They all have that functionality. So if I had like a stateful widget, which is not this case, but if I had one, I could like only supply the stream and everything would be like magic. The code is not that hard to manually do it. I can like come here and copy paste. After all, you already seen it. So I'm gonna copy this. It won't work because it's the bigger project that I told you about, that I wanted to do. Why I'm not? It's not working. Not even copy paste.
It's still running.
It's running.
Yeah.
So what?
Let's stop it.
Nah. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So, yeah, colors. So here I have like a bunch of widgets in a horrible way of structuring code. Don't do this at home. So here is another sugar syntax. So if you do something like this, this automatically will populate title. You don't need to like write this dot title equals title that comes from the argument. You don't need to write none of that. In opposite to Java, that is powered by the IDE that generates the code like getters and setters, the whole constructor with the arguments that you supplied. Here is simply don't need no boilerplate, nor an IDE powerful enough to generate this kind of code. So more, let's see. Should download that stuff, erase this stuff because it will not work. Anyways, a stateful component. As you can see, the set state function somewhere here. I was trying to look for where here. This is a stream builder. So I got the future builder. If you're familiar with Java, again, futures are the promises in Java. It's basically the same. Here we can like provide a future builder, which basically is a stream, and every time this changes, this will be triggered. And in this case, it was to connect to a WebSocket. So if it didn't connect, was supposed to like, or was waiting to connect, here was the loading widget. Lots of stuff that one needs to develop applications. For example, if you're doing front-end developing, every single time you have to like download pieces of code to fill the gaps. For example, loading bars. everybody has like to go through downloading the spinner, then writing some code, or downloading a package that does like 300 things, and one of them is the one that you need, but you'll have like a bazillion code that's worth of nothing and will only be in the bundle. Here it's cool because the framework itself provides you with lots of stuff, and even if you want to like pick up material specification, change the theme, it's really easy because the widgets, everything is open source and written in Dart. So imagine if we are here and you want, okay, so this is a widget, how the widget is built, everything is here, so it's really easy to understand. The documentation looked like it came from heaven. I don't know, these dudes went through a lot to write everything, even snippets of code. The code itself, it's what powers the documentation online, and it's really hard to find like missing documentation or stuff like that. They really put a lot of effort into making this attractive for the community. And I think this is the best part of the language and the framework itself. It's really hard to developing an application and having something missing, because either you have like a really hard scenario like connecting to some IoT device that it doesn't even have like a proper interface for a mobile phone. If you're not into that crazy stuff, probably you don't need anything else except what the framework gives you. And for that, or starting with this, I think it's a really good way of, even for the ones that never did mobile development, this is a really nice way to start with. I don't know if you tried with Java or Android to buy. Thank you for coming. In Java, there was a lot of configuration. Then there was no like standard between Gradle, Maven, and all those tools to do the same. So I think it's a simpler way. We didn't have the time, and these guys want to kick me out to develop the thing. So I'm going to propose the following. We schedule another stuff about Flutter if you guys are really into it, and we can like do what we were supposed, or me was supposed to do here, which is developing a project here. Basically, the project I was going to develop, I don't want to show it because I don't want to spoil it. I would prefer to save for a next time. Is tic-tac-toe, really simple game, agreed with 3x3 and interacting to user input. And even it's really easy to, for example, having the two mobile devices, or at least emulated mobile devices here, interacting with each other and being able to play like simulating two players, and at the same time developing the code. It's a really nice and really easy to do it. Another really easy exercise that's been in the web for some time now, and it's one of the best examples about the Flutter framework, is building Minesweeper for mobile devices. It's really easy, and okay, if you want to get like crazy and having like multiplayer or I don't know, weird stuff, but if you want to replicate that Minesweeper that everybody remembers from Windows, it's really, really easy. And but we can go through that in another session if you guys are into it. And that's it, right? Unfortunately, I would love to show you more, but maybe I should talk less.
So thank you.
Thank you, guys.